So, how do we create a meaningful abstraction progression system? Well, to begin with, we need to discuss existing ideas within games to decide what would really work within our game. For that, let's look at several ideas you may want to add within your game. To begin with, let's talk about skill trees. Skill trees have been in RPG games for a very long time, but more recently they've been adapted to other titles such as Spider-Man, Dead by Daylight and more. These skills don't have to be game breaking, but a simple buff such as extra time on timers, quicker reload times, more health and others. To create an intuitive skill tree, you need to figure out what your UI is like. For this, you need to discuss what type of game you're creating and what type of menu system you want. You need a consistent UI which reads extremely well. For example, let's look at this game. Spider-Man Miles Morales. The design of this skill tree is extremely intuitive and matches the branding of the entire game. Notice that the design of the UI is quite sci-fi owing to the scientist nature of the character. Not only that, but if you look at the shapes across the board, you'll notice that the skill tree is placed on a web. The skill tree is clean and avoids too much clutter. In your game you need to figure out the best way to drive the UI, and a further video on that will be coming in the near future from us. From skill trees, we can now look at upgrades. Upgrades can be used in different ways in games. Sometimes it could be new abilities and skills, which would tie back into the skill tree. It can also be a modification system, or gaining new weapons, armour and so much more. You need to balance this out. The game can't be too easy for a player who grinds the first few levels, but then if a player grinds for 4 hours on one mini quest, they will expect a large upgrade. And if the reward isn't worth it, they will likely lose interest in your game. A levelling up system. This ties into all of our previous points, but how will you make your levels unique? You could have a meta progression system, so having an outside system powering your game such as in Call of Duty, where you can constantly level up and prestige until the end. The player could unlock new items, abilities and armour. There's lots of stuff you can do, so try and be creative. Finally, let's talk about something not really spoken about much. No progression in games. Now, before you click off, hear me out. Let's look into a game called Sea of Thieves. Now, Sea of Thieves poses a different threat. The player character has no upgradables, no levels, and no progression. The stories in the game take a limited amount of time to complete, and once they are over, the only progression the player can make is purely cosmetic. It's a strange way to look at a game, and if you delve into it, why is the game so fun to play? Is it to get to Pirate Legend, which is technically the only progression in the game? It doesn't make you any stronger as a player, it simply makes you a little bit richer. Is it the visuals? Well, beautiful and definitely helps to keep the immersion. I don't think this is what keeps the player interested. Personally, I think the main progression in this game is the stories the player gets to tell as they travel the Sea of Thieves. As they go to each island and they meet new players, create alliances, have wars and travel through each story. That's all I really need to talk about with the abstracted progression. I hope you have a great day.